Well, everywhere around here there's the American flag and the English because of the coat of arms. But nowhere there's a French flag, and there's even a Swissy flag here. You know, the Templars. Templars, New World Order, Lafayette, because just next to it here. You know, and the English, they protected the Templars and the New World Order made by the Templars. So that's why the Swiss flag, the first New World Order, the second New World Order is America. It's all about America around here. It's all Rothschild, and who were, you know, with Lafayette, they were there, you know, with the founding of the independence. Well, not really independence.
We know this will take trillions, not billions of dollars. We also know that countries, many of whom are burdened by growing levels of debt, simply cannot afford to go green. Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector.
Political rookie Emmanuel Macron is leading the polls and tipped to be France's next president.
Et nous allons gagner! Vive la République! Vive la France!
The 39-year-old's meteoric rise has shaken the political establishment while also being its last hope. His centrist, pro-European, open border views stand in stark contrast to the rising voices of Europe's resurgent far right. This is how Macron's unabashed ambition drove him from star pupil to banker to political rebel and now the hot favourite to lead France. Macron was raised in the town of Amiens, 2 hours north of Paris. This is the house he grew up in. The eldest of 3 children from a family of doctors, he attended a Jesuit school. A precocious kid, he preferred the company of teachers to other pupils, and it was at school that he met his future wife. Brigitte Ozier was coach of the drama club. They worked closely together to rewrite a school production. He was 16, she was 40, and married with 3 children. Gossip about their relationship began to spread, and Macron left Amiens to finish high school at an elite establishment in Paris.
With trillions at his disposal, far beyond global GDP, and with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders, it offers the only real prospect of achieving fundamental economic transition.
I think it's quite close. I don't feel like going in here, you know, it's always the same thing. So this is all Lafayette. This is Lafitte Rothschilde. There's another castle. It's full of Rothschild. It's in Le Médoc, north of Bordeaux, and it's all the Rothschild. It's all together with Lafayette, the Marquise de Lafayette. Mar, like mer. It means pyramid. Qui, it's from Ka. Merca. The word Marquis is from Merca. It means pyramid, the soul, the living soul. You know what? You know, the other soul that doesn't. The eternal soul is the bar. So there it says. You know, this was just the castle we just saw. Here's a slave on the other side. So here in the Rothschild area, Mouton Rothschild, we're going to the castle. From this side, it's a pentagram. You know. And there are, you know, everywhere sphinxes, you know, so we see it's all pharaonic. Here's another castle. Well, it's kind of closed. Well, I'm together with these guys, so I can't go and, you know, have a stroll here. Oh, look at that. Who's that? Hey, what do you want? Yo, what do you want? What do you want? So this is the, you know, the sign of Solomon. You know, the Star of David, which is not a Jewish symbol. So the Rothschilds, they are pharaohs.
The San Jacinto Monument in La Porte, Texas, stands as a symbol of Texan pride and history. As the tallest stone monument in the world, it commemorates the Battle of San Jacinto, a pivotal moment in Texas's fight for independence from Mexico. Visitors can explore the museum at its base, showcasing artifacts and exhibits detailing the state's rich heritage. Climbing to the top offers panoramic views of the surrounding landscape. A visit to this iconic landmark is a must for history enthusiasts and Texans alike.
The San Jacinto Battleground, the place where Texas indisputably became Texas, independent and sovereign, now marked by the tallest monument in America. And what better place to start our exploration than up at the top?
Whew, look at that view. We're hundreds of feet above the San Jacinto battlefield, which gives you the best perspective of the final battle of the Texas Revolution.
It had been a hard few months for the Texans. Since the first shots were fired in Gonzales, the Texans had declared independence at Washington on the Brazos and suffered terrible losses at both the Alamo and Goliad. The powerful Mexican army now marched across Texas, sending settlers running in fear and burning their possessions in what's now known as the Runaway Scrape. However, instead of running to safety in Louisiana, Houston turned his army south to face Santa Anna head-on at San Jacinto. Today, visitors see a battleship, a monument, and a state park. But of course, in April of 1836, none of it was there. The Texian army, numbering 900 men, camped west near Buffalo Bayou. Across the field, less than a mile away, camped the Mexican army, believing they had the Texans cornered. On April 20th, a small skirmish left 2 Texans wounded. And that same evening, 500 additional soldiers under General Post joined the Mexican camp. Santa Anna, confident the Texans would never strike his superior numbers, put no soldiers on watch. It would be his fatal mistake. At 3:30 in the afternoon on April 21st, obscured by trees and a small hill, the Texian army assembled. With rifles ready, they charged. The unexpected onslaught sent the Mexican army into a panic. The next few minutes were a storm of rifle fire and hand-to-hand combat as Texans overwhelmed the Mexican side, shouting, "Remember the Alamo," and "Remember Goliad." In a mere 18 minutes, the battle was over.
Weissweiler, typical Swiss name. We saw the flag. So it's interesting. Weiss, it means white. Rot, it means red. So it's all here. The Swiss flag is here, red and white is here. And Weiss, white is the New World Order, and red is actually the Old World Order. But a red shield is also, it's Switzerland, a red flag with a red shield, like on the Swiss Army knife. And it means the Hospitallers. And the Hospitallers is the economical wing. After the Crusades, when the Templars disappeared, they became the economical wing of the Templars to take all the belongings. They were the same. And before the war, they were the ones who cured the people on the way there, like hospitallers. Yeah, you get it? To get us there, so they can. It's all geostrategical wars for them. Yeah, it's all marble here. Weissweiler. Weiler, it's the name of a town. Weilen, that means to stay, to reside. So they reside in the white, the New World Order, like the White House. Weissweiler, it's another name for the White House, The White Royal House of Pharaoh, of the New World Order of Akhenaton. That's why he was the heretic Pharaoh. It was not a religious issue, it was a political issue.
Ozier followed later to teach. The pair married when Macron was 30. After school, he attended university in Paris, studying philosophy, then went to the prestigious National School of Administration, a breeding ground for the French elite. He worked for 4 years as an inspector at the Ministry of Economy before moving to the renowned investment bank Rothschild. Macron was quickly parachuted into managing a massive acquisition.
Nestle has agreed to buy Pfizer's infant nutrition business for almost $12 billion.
When the deal went through, he got a big payout.
In my video, The World's Richest Man Hoax, I wanted to illustrate the true wealth of the world's richest family using something very tangible. So in that video, I showed you Waddesdon, one of the world's most palatial and expensive homes ever built. And by 1957, the Rothschilds had amassed so much wealth that they bequeathed Waddesdon to the National Trust. Of course, the house remains under the watchful eye of the Rothschilds to this day, and as one viewer commented, they no longer have to pay any taxes on it because it is in the National Trust. But there's a much better way to calculate the unimaginable wealth of the Rothschilds, simply by using history. Now, we know one of the most astonishing stories of Rothschild wealth revolves around the Battle of Waterloo, in which Nathan Rothschild used his inside knowledge of the outcome and his faster horses and couriers to play the market by getting the results of the battle before anyone else knew the outcome. And I'm reading this article from darkpolitics.com. As many of you know, Nathan Rothschild caused a sell-off in bonds and gave all the traders who looked to him for guidance the impression that the French had won at Waterloo. The other traders also rushed to sell their bonds, causing a 95% decline in their original worth. And once the bottom had dropped out, Nathan Rothschild then rebought as many bonds back as he could at hugely discounted prices, and in doing so he multiplied his wealth 20 times in just 3 days of trading. Now, that history was shared in the 1934 Hollywood movie, The House of Rothschild, which was backed by the Rothschild family.
Buy. Yes, buy.
Have you had any news? What do you think about this rumor?
I don't listen to rumors, Mr. Baring.
You hear what they say? Wellington defeated. You mind telling me what you're going to do?
I have no objection to all London knowing what I'm going to do. I'm buying.
So that very important history is on the record. Now, in my last video, I calculated 8% interest as a compounding annual rate of return for the Rothschilds, given that the family not only can move markets, but manipulates and has been able to manipulate markets for decade after decade. An 8% return is very conservative. However, it's also tangible and quantifiable. You see, by buying up all of the bonds after the Battle of Waterloo, Nathan Rothschild became the single largest debtor to the English government, which ultimately gave him control over the Bank of England. English bonds were a debt guaranteed by future tax revenue of the English government. Therefore, the taxes the citizens paid were going to pay the 8% interest that the English government had to pay to borrow the money. So, the Battle of Waterloo occurred in 1815. So let's just round up the quote-unquote control of the Bank of England by the Rothschilds to 1817, since we're in the year 2017, giving us a nice round number of 200 years to work with. And we're going to do the math in just a second, but I want to give you something else that's very quantifiable. Instead of guessing what the net worth of the Rothschilds might have been around 1817, I found this article from the Days of Noah, the Rothschild family from 1800 to 1818, the plan to control the world. Now, fast forward through all the intrigue and the gold trading for kings to 1815, the year Nathan Mayer Rothschild made his famous statement, "I care not what puppet is placed upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the British money supply." Now, he would also go on to brag that in the 17 years he had been in England, he had increased the £20,000 stake given to him by his father 2,500 times to £50 million. Now remember, that's 1815. Let's just bump it up to 1817, and we'll keep the other 4 Rothschild brothers out of the conversation, each of whom were making separate fortunes of their own in different areas of the world. So let's go over to the compound interest calculator, and let's just assume for the sake of argument that Lord Rothschild was using puffery or braggery when he said he was worth 50 million, and let's just give him credit for 10 million, and see what happens with the magic of compound interest and that already locked in annual interest rate that they were guaranteed by the Bank of England of 8%. 10 million. Length of time in years you plan to save, well, I think the Rothschilds would probably sock that away for, say, 200 years. At an annual rate of interest of 8%, in 200 years you will have $48,389,495,849,000. That's really chump change to the Rothschilds. Why don't we take him at his word and check out what 50 million is worth over 200 years. Change that to a 5. That's 50 million invested over 200 years at an annual interest rate of 8%. In 200 years, they would have achieved $241 trillion in wealth. And of course, that doesn't account for any gold and silver market manipulation. It doesn't account for any of their other investments. And it certainly doesn't account for any additional wealth they were able to build when they implemented the central bank in the United States, the Federal Reserve, in 1913. This is just the money Lord Rothschild claimed that he was worth in 1815. And of course, we started this calculation in 1817 just to give us a nice round number of 200 years to work with. So perhaps now you can understand why, by some estimates, the Rothschild family is worth more than $500 trillion. And the next time you find yourself at a dinner party or by the workplace water cooler and somebody wants to tell you about the world's richest man and mentions Jeff Bezos, who made his $100 billion just over the last 20 years, you may just want to remind them about the history of the Rothschilds, the manipulation of financial markets for more than 200 years, and a little something called compounding.
Then in 2012, Macron was offered a position working for the new president and a personal friend, François Hollande. 2 years later, Hollande gave him the prestigious position of Minister of Economy. He was 36. But by now, Hollande's public approval rating had fallen to historic lows. Macron threw himself into a plan to loosen economic regulation with testy exchanges in Parliament. But the reforms were disliked and the legislation had to be forced through Parliament, sparking violent protest. Macron increasingly criticized the government but still enjoyed the president's support. Then, last year, he launched his own political movement, En Marche, or On the Move, thrusting him into the national spotlight.
He's really come out of nowhere. 3 years ago, Emmanuel Macron was barely known to the general public, and here he is today on the verge of becoming president.
That's Mark Dean.
I'm a deputy bureau chief at Bloomberg News in Paris, and I'm on the campaign trail with Emmanuel Macron.
The youthful contender was seen as a presidential long shot.
When he started his movement, everyone, including many journalists, including myself, said, "Oh, well, that's pretty cute, and it's a nice effort, but he's not going to be president." But borrowing from US President Barack Obama's election playbook, he took to social media and ran a large grassroots campaign.
Et une chance pour chacun.
By the time France went to the polls for the first round of voting in April, he had successfully reinvented himself.
Hello to everyone.
He was no longer the failed reformer working under a failed president, but a new voice in politics.
Pourquoi je suis terriblement optimiste aujourd'hui? Parce que je sais, en vous voyant, en observant notre mouvement, que nous réussirons, oui, que nous réussirons à rassembler les Français et à réconcilier les France.
He secured the most votes of any candidate in the first round, putting him into a runoff with another political outsider, the far-right Marine Le Pen. Still, it's not all smooth sailing into the Élysée Palace. Macron has many critics on both sides of the political spectrum. But against a far-right candidate who wants to leave the EU, will voters on the left and the right swing behind Macron?
The answer is that polls currently show that is what will happen. However, this election is not over. Abstention is key, and anything can happen. We've seen it with Brexit. We've seen it with Trump.
I'm going to vote blue.
Vote for who you want. This is a free dictatorship.
Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector, with trillions at its disposal.
I just want to show you these pictures from the Palace of Versailles, where after a day of pageantry and meetings, you can see there King Charles and Queen Camilla meeting the French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris. They are going to a state banquet. And we're going to bring you, of course, all of this arrival shots when we have it. You can see there the French president and his wife and the king and queen there posing for pictures with the French president for that banquet in Versailles.
There are 4 sphinxes here and 4 balls. I was expecting the number 3 too. So 4 balls, 4 sphinxes. It's all pharaonic. The ball means the world domination. That one there too. the house of David. You know, there's no Star of David of the Jews. The Orthodox Jews, they don't accept this shit. They say, I'm not going to design this army, I'm not going to kill any Palestinians, you do it, I'm not going to do it. Because it's not the Ten Commandments. Ten Commandments don't allow me to. Moses told me, don't kill anybody. So four lions and 4 bulls, the world domination. Now where's the number 3? That's weird. It's all 4, the base of a pyramid. And 5 and 6. Gee, where they're hiding the bottles, eh? But I'm still on the inside, 2 times the world domination. And here, look at that little devil here, with the horns and all that. It's a devil. And this thing on, you know, it's the goat, Satan. And look at it here. How many are there? 8? No, 9. Yeah, 9. 9 Templars, New World Order. Yeah, and they, you know, I've seen this like in the ocean, in the Emirates, you know, where they got the water all around it, you know, and build houses for people, you know, to camp there. Or, yeah, so the Emirates, an emir, that's a pharaoh. You know, it's an aristocrat of the Arab dudes.
Wonder what he makes of the environmental policies announced by Rishi Sunak today. King Charles, of course, somebody who has been a campaigner on environmental issues, I think it's fair to say. Penny for his thoughts this evening as he meets the French president.
The Supreme Court building sits on a plot of land next to the Foreign Ministry and the Central Bank of Israel. You know, it's important to note there's a lot of ley lines at play here as well. I'm not going to cover that so much here in this video. There's people out there that do really good work with that. There's a lot of things happening with the ley lines all around the Supreme Court as well. But that being said, it's important to understand that everything about this building has been thought out to the very finest detail. And I see it as absolutely diabolical. This is the devil's plan being put into place before we ever even realize it. The devil, knows its final battle will be here in Jerusalem. Now, if you're not familiar with the Rothschild family, please do a little research there. People always ask, who's the Illuminati? What do they look like? This is one of them. The Rothschild family is one of the Illuminati bloodline families. So it's interesting to note that the engineers who were chosen for this job by the Rothschilds were the grandson and granddaughter of a man who actually worked for Baron Rothschild. You also find their love of numerology all throughout this building and in the building process. It was important to the builder to have everything done according to the correct numbers. It's really interesting because all around the building you'll find these different pathways that you can walk through. And here's one right here. The larger circle you see at the bottom of the picture is actually an inverted cross. And this whole thing was designed for people to walk on. So this is actually a religious emblem placed there designed for people to trample on under their feet. So keeping in mind that we're approaching a one world religion, okay, this is what's coming. This will be the beast system fully revealed, the Antichrist system. So this is why we find all the world religions represented in one way or another. For instance, right here, just beyond that Egyptian obelisk, lies a Muslim gravesite. Another thing you'll find all throughout the building and even out in the courtyard are multiple Hindu altars. And just in case there's still any doubt that the Rothschilds are actually behind this, this is one of the placards you find on the wall. The founder of the Rothschild dynasty and his 5 sons established all the central banks throughout Europe. The Rothschilds made several stipulations with the Israeli government before building the Supreme Court. And among them were that the Rothschilds would pick the plot of land to build the Supreme Court, they would use their own architects, and no one would ever know how much the building actually cost. It took them 4 years to build this structure with many secrets built into it. As I said, every element of this building was built according to occult knowledge. This right here is a great example. You find it right here that when you first enter the building, you actually find yourself on the journey. This entire journey is intended to bring one from darkness into the light and become an illuminated one. As you see here, when you very first enter the building, it starts off with dim lighting, but as you look up the stairs, you see the bright light that comes from a very large window that looks over parts of Jerusalem. It's also very important to note these steps here. There are 3 sets of 10 steps, making a total of 30. Now, as you ascend these 30 steps, you come from the darkness into the light. And from here you can see the world, or in this case, the city of Jerusalem, like you've never seen it before. It's also worth mentioning that right here on the right side, you'll see the old Jerusalem stone. Some even believe these same stones were used in the Second Temple. And on the other side, you'll see the smooth modern wall. There are 6 lampstands going up that speaks to the man on his journey to gain his knowledge and become illuminated. But once again, I think it's very important to note that the ones who built this building built it to be, in their eyes, perfect and in their order of things, even numerically. And even right here, this is where we start getting a little bit deeper, but when you leave the center courtroom or the main courtroom, the base of the stairs you walk down, as you descend, you'll find the fertility symbol right there in the very center, which is always present in any of these so-called Illuminati structures.
Yeah. That's not Jewish. That's not Jewish. That's not Jewish. And this is not Jewish. The Rothschilds are not Jewish. So let's have a look there. If you see all the barracks, that reminds me of military stuff like 200 or 300 years ago, 200 years ago. Lafayette, when they went with a couple of ships and bring the new world order to America. Lafayette, it's all here.
Because when they came, the souls of them, they want to enter the blood. They could not find. And actually,
that looks like me. Look at those ears.
And he was the overseer of the pyramid city of Cheops and Kefren and Menkaure. Mr. President, you look like Keith. And actually,
that looks like me. Look at those ears.
Oh, you want?
The elite unit of the French police storming a boat on the Seine. This is the Olympic training usually unseen. Their target are men threatening the lives of potential passengers. These attack simulations preparing for the most ambitious opening ceremony in Olympic history. Athletes parading for the public like this, down the river on boats rather than walking around a stadium. A vast extravaganza adding to the security challenge for France. And protecting athletes the top priority for the boss of Team GB.
I'm concerned. It's one of the most important things that we have to manage from a risk perspective. Our security team that work very closely with us on a day-to-day basis, they then engage with all of the British security and intelligence services.
Are you concerned about this opening ceremony being in the open air?
Yeah, I think everyone knows that is clearly a risky environment. And all that stuff they would expect is happening to make it as safe as it can be. And I'm confident it will be safe.
Armed personnel a familiar sight at Paris landmarks, and they'll be supported by British police who are being deployed here for the Games. The French government had been insistent for months they would stick with the unprecedented open-air opening ceremony, but the language has been shifting and now they're talking about alternatives, and one of them is having the ceremony just here around the Trocadero site. France is now on a maximum terror alert, the level raised after the Islamic State group claimed responsibility for attacks on a Moscow music venue last month. Plans ever changing for those forming crisis management strategies for companies ahead of the Olympics.
The security services are foiling attempts
all the time. So the threat is there, but you really should look into other threats as well. And of course the cyber threats, which is really in everybody's minds, because the best way to make the Olympic look bad is by using some type of a cyber attack on public displays.
France securing systems brace for cyber attacks from hostile states. While across Paris, temporary venues are being readied. Iconic backdrops for a summer when France wants the spotlight on the sport. That will require the biggest security operation in the country's history, being assembled over the next 100 days.
Try not to understand, because it is impossible.
It's going to get more and more overtly occult as these things develop. I mean, Burning Man's totally in-your-face occult. I mean, that's just flat out, we're witches, we're here, we're New Age, we're here to work witchcraft. We're gathering together because there's more power. You know, this has been almost like programming that's been put into humanity's mind for a long time. Now it's more of a manifestation of this. This is just so far off the scale where this world is heading. The amount of time, effort, money that is being expended by Satan and his minions to implement his agenda.
A future that Ernest Cline, the writer of the book, envisioned. I was very careful with Ernie collaborating with me every step of the way to be able to find the movie narrative inside this dense forest of Ernie's profound imagination.
The Oasis being the ultimate toy box with all the toys in the world, and then playing that with one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. It results in just amazing action and such a fun adventure.
Ernest Cline is such a visionary, and I think has seen the future before any of us possibly could even imagine it.